can't hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm going to be presenting on Nicaragua today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience there. When I was living in Nicaragua, I lived with the host family. And so I had, there was a 6-year-old who was going to school. And then I also worked at a school for children with disabilities. So I also just want to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And great. Okay, so, all right, awesome. Here we go. Okay. All right, great. So again, Nicaragua is in Central America. It's this red country right here. The capital is Managua. And then I was in Nicaragua, so it's in the mountains in the northern region right about here. Okay, so a daily schedule for a child. So again, this was my host nephew, Brian here. He's practicing words. But so a basic schedule is that, you wake up, you have chores in the morning. So you like cleaning, washing dishes, things like that. And then you have breakfast. And so our host mom, she cooked. So it was a nice breakfast. And then getting ready for school. And so then most children, they either walk or they take the bus to school. And this is usually a public bus. Or it can be a school bus, depending on how nice the neighborhood is or the area is. But also some children, they may have to walk a very long time to get to school because they live in rural areas or they don't have many resources. So then you have school, and it usually ends about 12 to 2 p.m. So most children go home for lunch. I just remember Brian, he would always come home around about 1 p.m. and then our mom would make lunch, and it was great. And so after that, you may have chores again or free time. So you can play with like other, your brothers and sisters or neighborhood kids, go to the park, and dinner and homework. So a pretty normal schedule, I'd say. I knew when I was growing up, I had a pretty normal schedule like that, except our school usually ends at about 3:30, depending, or, if you're younger, it may end at 2. So it's very similar to our school system. And so I had a short video. Let's see. But I'll come back to the video just to see if we have time for it. But again, going over the school system. So the school year actually runs from February to November, which is a little bit different from our schools. We run from about August to May, and it's kind of interesting. And so you have primary and elementary school, which is grades 1 through 6. So this is free, and it's usually compulsory for all students. So that means that you have to go, but unfortunately that's not always the case. Some young children are not able to attend school. This may be because there's not one in that area. They need to stay home and work and like help with like the family chores or things like that. But most children do go to elementary school because it is free, which is great. So then you go into secondary school, which is similar to high school. So again, there's not really a middle school, kind of like in Hungary, but so secondary school is like 7th grade through 12th grade, which you're in 8th grade now, so you would be in secondary school. And then after this, you can go to a vocational school for 2 to 3 years, or you can go to like a tertiary school or university for 4 to 5 years afterwards. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. Again, vocational school is like learning a trade, like if you wanted to be an electrician or something, whereas university is more academic. Say you want to study psychology, that's where you would go. And so these pictures over here, you can see there are very many different types of schools. For all different children, depending on, again, like resources in your area, if you're in a very rural area versus a very urban area, so cities. And so a lot of the time, children have to wear uniforms, but sometimes that's not the case. Okay, so secondary education. So this is like high school, 7th to 12th grade. This is pretty interesting. So it lasts about 5 years. in the first 3 years, so ages 12 to 15, is like the basic cycle. So this is where you're learning, just like your basic math and English. Maybe you're working on a language, science, things like that. So everybody kind of has the same basic curriculum. However, in the last 2 years, so when you're 15 to 17, this is the diversified cycle. So you have two different tracks. You can go in for like a bachelor's of arts and science. So this is like a liberal arts oriented course of study, or you can do the vocational, like the técnico medio, 3-year course of study in one of the technical secondary schools. So again, if you wanted to learn a trade, like you wanted to be a carpenter or something, maybe you could take this course. So like in Hungary, you're kind of deciding early on what track you want, what you want to do, which is very different from the U.S., where we all receive, have like the same curriculum. While there are like certain levels, it's essentially the same curriculum. And so then here you're choosing. So, you're either going more liberal arts oriented or more or technical studies. Excuse me. So something really important to me when I was in Nicaragua was working with children with disabilities. So I'm sure like you have children with disabilities in your school. Maybe it's called the Exceptional Children, like EC program, or it's called a variety of different things. But in Nicaragua, there are less options for children with disabilities, which is really unfortunate, but it is the reality. And so there are limited options for school, which means that they're unable to learn essential skills. So, I mean, even just going to school and and learning some things, like that's so helpful and great for these students, because they should be treated with the same respect and the same dignity as other students. However, a lot of the time, like it's not possible for families to be able to help them get to school, or there are programs in school, regular schools. And so also it can be very costly financially, because, working on transport and also if there's any medical care that needs to be taken care of, then that it just may be too costly to be able to send them to school and account for these different costs. And so there was a really interesting study done, and it said 12% of children 0 to 16 have a disability in Nicaragua, but only 3.5% are enrolled in a special education program. So, I mean, that just lets you know that there's a huge gap between students who have special needs and those who receive an education or have a program to enroll in, which to me, that is very sad. But I think the really cool thing is that there are programs and schools that are now emerging in Nicaragua to help students with disabilities. And so one that I worked with was called Familias Especiales, which is like special families. And it's really cool. I included the website down here if you all want to check it out later. But it was just an amazing organization. And so it works with students with disabilities, just elementary school aged. And they have a program. They have a special bus that goes and picks children up around the city. These are some of my students. They were working, it was like a cultural festival day. And they were doing traditional dances from Nicaragua, which is really cool. So it had all different programs like dance. We worked on counting, colors. They had awesome programs for these students, which was really cool. So you can kind of see our classroom here. That's why I like this picture, is that, you can see we had a variety of students, different ages, different needs. Excuse me. And, the teachers here are volunteers. They're also people with experience. And so it's great because, this was a school run by Nicaraguans for Nicaraguans. And they're really helping out the students and providing these great programs for them. All right, cool. Sorry, I can't see you all otherwise if I don't do this, but, oops. My bad. So, all right, true or false? So raise your hand if you think this is true. There are 3 different tracks for secondary school. Okay, good. Right, that's false. Okay. The school day is the same amount of time in the U.S. So raise your hand if you think that's true. Okay, great. Again, it's false. 3, there are limited options for children with disabilities. Yeah, so that one's true. And so, like I said, it's just important to think about, what options there are in your own school and how how you think of other students with disabilities or without disabilities in your own class or not in your own class. And then also just thinking about, what options there are for these children in other schools. Cool. All right. So I have time. I'm just going to show a few minutes of this one video because I just think it's really awesome. If you just, let's make sure it works. Hold on one second. All right. Let's see if it works here. All right. Can you all hear it? Let's see. I want to go to, yeah, you can hear. Okay, so it's about 10 minutes long. So I'm going to skip to about the point where we get to school, but it's pretty cool. Can you all see it? Are you good?
Yeah. We can see it, but we can't hear it. You might have to do a share sound within the share screen function.
I can hear it, but it's just very quiet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's quiet. Okay, then maybe I can work on turning it up. Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
Each day before the classes begin, all students of the elementary and secondary gather to pray. Twice a week, the student body sings their national anthem. At El Padul, Fernando and Nicole are 2 of many students taking English class. And all the students love learning through song. For part of the morning, Fernando studies natural science. Here, Fernando is taking his English oral exam.
What color is this ball? Yellow. Say the sentence. Very good.
Nicole and her 4th grade class wash their hands for lunch as the cooks prepare the meal. Nicole eats with her classmates and then plays some games as well. All of the elementary now departs for their houses, which includes Nicole and Fernando.
Cool. So that was just a little video. You can see the rest of it. I'm sure Ms. Sanderlin, if she's able to, might be able to show you the rest of it, but I don't want to take up too much more time. But just wanted you to kind of see maybe what a day in the life of a Nicaraguan student would look like a little bit. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Annie.
Hi guys. So I usually